You finally sit down. Nothing urgent, nothing on fire, just a quiet evening. And yet, your chest tightens. A thought appears. You should be doing something. You're not lazy, you're not behind. But resting feels wrong. Why does doing nothing feel like doing something bad? Visual. Empty room with sunlight. Hold that question, because the guilt isn't random, and it didn't start today. 2. Problem deep dive. You tell yourself you'll relax after you finish everything. But everything never finishes. There's always one more email, one more improvement, one more way to be better. So when you stop, your mind doesn't soften. It scans, it searches, it replays unfinished tasks, conversations, future scenarios. Even during a movie you half watch, even on vacation you feel slightly restless. And when someone says, just relax, it almost irritates you, because relaxing feels irresponsible. Visual person scrolling phone while TV plays in background. This isn't just about productivity. It affects your identity. You don't just do things. You are the reliable one, the responsible one, the one who handles it. If you're not producing, who are you? And that's where the guilt lives. In psychology, this connects to something called contingent self-worth. Your sense of value becomes tied to performance. Not who you are, but what you do. Over time, your brain pairs rest with risk. Not physical danger, but social danger, disapproval, falling behind, becoming irrelevant. So even in stillness, your nervous system doesn't power down. It stays alert. But here's the part most people miss. This pattern didn't form because you're obsessive. It formed because it worked, and that changes everything. 3. Reframe. You're not broken. You adapted. At some point, being useful made you safe. Maybe praise came when you achieved. Maybe attention came when you helped. Maybe calm came only after you handled things. So your brain learned. Action equals safety. Rest equals uncertainty. From a behavioral psychology perspective, behaviors that reduce anxiety get reinforced. And if working hard reduced criticism or prevented chaos or earned approval, your brain stamped it as survival, not ambition. Survival. Visual, child doing homework at a table while adults talk in background. This is how patterns solidify, not through logic, through repetition. But survival strategies don't always update automatically, especially when your environment changes. Your brain still runs the old program, even when you're safe now. So the guilt isn't proof you shouldn't rest. It's proof your nervous system hasn't recalibrated yet. And to recalibrate, you have to understand the mechanism. 4. Psychological mechanism. Let's slow this down. Your brain has 2 major systems involved here. The threat detection system, largely centered around the amygdala, and the reward system, involving dopamine pathways. When you complete tasks, your brain releases dopamine. Dopamine isn't just pleasure, it's progress tracking. It says, you're moving forward. Good. Over time, yet your brain starts associating movement with safety. Now add stress. If you grew up in unpredictability or high expectations, your amygdala became sensitive. It scans for what could go wrong, and stillness gives it space to scan louder. Visual. Abstract brain animation highlighting 2 areas pulsing. Think of your mind like a treadmill. As long as you're running, the machine hums steadily. The moment you step off, you feel the silence. And in that silence, unprocessed thoughts get louder. Rest doesn't create anxiety, it reveals it. That's why guilt shows up. It's a protective signal. Your brain says, if you stop, you might fall behind. If you fall behind, you might lose safety. Even if that's not true anymore, there's also something called default mode network activation. When you're not focused on tasks, this network activates. It's responsible for self-reflection and rumination. For some people, that reflection feels peaceful. For others, it feels like self-criticism. So the equation becomes rest to self-awareness, to self-judgment, to guilt. Not because rest is wrong, but because your inner narrative is harsh. Visual, person lying in bed staring at ceiling. And here's the deeper conflict. Your identity became structured around effort. If effort drops, identity feels unstable. which means guilt isn't about time, it's about self-definition. So how do you interrupt that loop? Not by forcing yourself to relax, but by retraining the association. On 5. Practical framework. We'll walk through 4 principles. Each one works with the brain, not against it. 1. Separate worth from output. Consciously what to do. At the end of each day, write one sentence that describes who you were, not what you did. Example. I was patient today. I showed up honestly. I listened. Visual notebook with one sentence written. Why it works. This strengthens identity networks in the brain independent of achievement. So you're expanding your self-schema beyond performance. Over time, the brain stops linking value exclusively to productivity. 2. Schedule rest like a task. What to do? Put relaxation on your calendar. Literally. 30 minutes, non-negotiable. Why it works. Your brain respects structure. If rest becomes intentional, the prefrontal cortex categorizes it as purposeful, not accidental. That reduces amygdala-driven threat signals. Example. Instead of collapsing randomly, you say, from 8 to 8:30, I am recovering. Recovery feels strategic, not lazy. 3. Lower the entry point of rest. If your nervous system resists full stillness, don't start there. What to do? Choose active rest. Slow walking, stretching, journaling without goals. Visual. Person walking alone at night under soft lights. Why it works. Gradual exposure reduces anxiety. In behavioral therapy, and small exposures retrain threat responses. You're teaching your brain. Stillness doesn't equal danger. 4. Notice the guilt without obeying it. What to do? When guilt appears, label it. This is my productivity alarm. Not truth. An alarm. Why it works. Labeling emotions activates the prefrontal cortex, which reduces amygdala intensity. This is called affect labeling. You're not suppressing guilt, you're contextualizing it. Example. You sit on the couch. The thought says, you're wasting time. You respond internally. Alarm noted. And you stay seated. Over time, the alarm gets quieter because it's no longer rewarded with action. Visual, slow-moving light patterns. 6. Integration. Here's the model to remember. Your brain built a bridge between effort and safety. Effort became your shield. But now you're safe enough to put the shield down sometimes. Think of your nervous system like a smoke detector. It was calibrated in a sensitive environment. So now, it goes off even when there's just steam. Rest is steam, not fire. Visual. Waves moving slowly on a quiet shore. You don't rip the detector off the ceiling. You recalibrate it, gently, repeatedly, by separating worth from output, by structuring rest, by lowering exposure, by labeling guilt. Each repetition sends a new message. I can pause, and nothing collapses. That's how identity updates, not through insight alone, through experience. 7. Quiet, empowering close. You don't feel guilty relaxing because you're weak. Saka, you feel guilty because your brain learned that constant motion kept you safe. And it's still trying to protect you. But protection can become prison. And safety can evolve. Visual, empty room with evening light fading. Tonight, when you sit down and the guilt whispers, don't fight it, just notice it, and stay. Because rest isn't the absence of value. It's the space where value stops needing proof. And maybe the real growth is learning that you are still enough when nothing is being produced.